Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I want to say thank you for all of the gave me good feedback, people who were interested in the discussion, especially the one about me being a little low in the sound because I'm still working on trying to figure out sound, and I really appreciate any feedback. So thank you. But today we're going to be talking about another author, or at least a situation that's happening on Book Talk with another author. It's again kind of in that more political realm. I'm not a person who really likes to talk about politics publicly, but sometimes when I have a passion for wanting to talk about something, I really can't stop myself from wanting to make a video. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. And again, I'll be looking over here at my notes. Today, we're going to be talking about a book talk drama that really hit home because it goes beyond book drama and it's like right to the heart. It's about like who's allowed in fandom spaces, who's allowed to feel safe in fandom spaces, in particular, bookish fandom spaces. We'll be talking about Emily Rath and her recent comments and the sort of back and forth backlash that has been happening on Book Talk because of it. Author Emily Rath, if you don't know, recently posted a series on TikTok where she said something that stirred the pot. To boil it down to what she said, Trump supporters are welcome to read her books. They are not welcome to access to her, or rather, they're not welcome to access to her fandom, to her fan spaces.
Platform is not a safe space for you to come and feel validated.
And I just want to say up front, I agree with Emily. And hopefully, this video will point out as to why I agree with her. This wasn't just a hot take, it was a boundary. And I think it was an important one, and one that I think it's important discussing moving forward, speaking only for the United States, where a lot of things that 10, 15 years ago weren't political now are turned into being more political. And it's now people are wanting to know where people stand politics wise, which I don't think is a problem. And I think that more authors, currently, from what I'm seeing on social media, are also starting to take that stand. And I think it'll be very important for artists in the future. Without further ado, let's get into who Emily Rath is, what she actually said, and why more authors are starting to draw these lines publicly. If you're not familiar with Emily Rath, she's a New York Times bestselling author. She's known for writing queer, inclusive, sex positive, emotionally complex stories. She writes across genres like fantasy, hockey romance, I think, is that's one of her most popular ones, or maybe one that you may know about, like Pucking Around is a pretty big one of hers, and historical romance as well. Her most well knowns, the Second Son's Regency romance series. By the way, if you hear like music in the background, like children's music in the background, there's an ice cream truck that comes by. That's what that is. If you hear it, the Jacksonville Rays hockey romance. It's like a viral Why Choose series. And excuse me if I pronounce this completely wrong. The Tuanella duet, a dark fantasy inspired in part by her Finnish heritage. But Emily is more than just a romance author. She's a former university professor with PhDs in political science and peace studies from Notre Dame. So when she speaks on politics, which she does very often on her TikTok, and justice, she's not just reacting emotionally. There are times when she is reacting and it's a very emotional response. But when I see her talk about politics on her TikTok, because of course I follow her, to me, she understands the structural implications of power, community, and exclusion, even from her own personal experience, as well as some of the stuff that she's studied herself. And as someone who writes books that celebrate identity, sexuality, freedom, and healing, it makes complete sense to me that she'd want to protect that very space that she's created amongst her fandom through the work of her books. And someone who beliefs may threaten that very fabric or that very space, I can understand why she wouldn't want that kind of person to be at least within the community of her fandom, or at least someone that she would have her support behind. So let's talk about the TikToks her message, and all of that. Now, in her TikToks, Emily made it very clear that, and she also reiterated this in other videos, that she's not gatekeeping her books, or like she says she's against book banning, of course. So she's not against these people reading her books. She's not against these people reading her books or buying her books. She says anyone can buy them and read them, but being a part of her fandom, being a part of her community, being a part of having access to her is something that she's choosing to set a boundary with. She wants to make it very clear that if you are a person who supports the current president and voted for the current president, yes, you can still read her books. Yes, you can still buy them or check them out from the library or whatever, but you're not going to have access to her or her fandom.
This is not a safe space for you. My platform is not a safe space for you.
She said that's something that's earned. And it's also something that you're going to have respect for people within her community. And if you support Trump or what his movement stands for, you're not welcome here. And she made that very clear in that TikTok. And here's why I think personally that boundary that she set for her community is necessary. Trumpism, and again, I'm sorry if you're not really into talking about politics, but I do think these discussions are important. And I also think that it's important for my channel so people know where I stand as well. Trumpism isn't just a political opinion, it's a platform built on policies and certain statements that directly harm people Emily writes for and about. So if you're confused on what those policies would be, because a lot of the TikToks that I saw maybe are a little confused on what those policies would be, here are just some of them, and why they would be harmful to the very community that Emily writes for and about. Let's talk about the anti LGBTQ policies. And again, I'm going to read them over here. The Trump administration tried to ban trans people from serving in the military, gutted protections for trans students, and rolled back healthcare access to trans people. Emily's books are proudly queer inclusive. Her fandom, the one she's trying to protect, includes people who are directly harmed by those types of policies. Let's talk about another one that Emily has been very vocal about, not only on her Threads account, but also on TikTok: book bans and censorship. Trump supporters have pushed for widespread bans on books that contain queer characters, as we discussed in the previous video. They've also called for a ban on books that have sexual content or discussions of race, aka books like hers. Her entire catalog is the kind of work they've actively tried to erase. Let's talk about something else. White supremacy, xenophobia. From calling immigrants animals to insulting Muslim bans and supporting violent white nationalist rhetoric, Trump's platform is deeply rooted in racial exclusion, not inclusion. Emily's books often center resistance to oppressive systems. Her characters fight for freedom and justice. Trumpism fights for the complete opposite. Another thing that is completely opposed to Trumpism and Emily Rath's identity and books is misogyny and rape culture. Let's be clear. And again, like, let's just be honest with ourselves. A man caught bragging about assault, who was found liable in court, and who has enabled a movement that consistently devalues women's rights, does not belong in a fandom centered around sex positivity and enthusiastic consent. And the very last thing that is a part of the Trumpism ideology is anti intellectualism and disinformation. As a former academic, or current academics, I think she just got her another PhD, I think. Emily's whole background is built in truth seeking and education, especially from a white person. Trump's platform thrives on conspiracies, misinformation, and the silencing of real facts. These aren't just political differences, are fundamental threats to the safety and humanity of people and Emily's very fandom. So when she says, this is not a safe space for you, it's not about exclusion. It's about protection. Protection of a space where they can feel welcome and they can feel like they can be themselves and open about who they are and not feel like they're the very person sitting next to them or commenting on their stuff or whatever have you, is a person who believes that their very identity shouldn't exist. So here's why I agree with Emily Rath. I support her 100%. Now, granted, I'll be honest with you, I have not read any of her books. I'm planning on it. Okay, I've got a actually, it's funny. Today I just went on a book buying ban, but when I'm off the book buying ban, I will be buying her books. Actually, I went to Walmart today and I was actually looking for one of her books. I was like, well, if I'm going to be talking about her today, I might as well pick up one of her books. They're gone. They're completely like sold out. So that's a good thing. So, and the North Carolina Walmart, they're sold out where I am. So that's good. Anyway, back to why I support her. Fandom is more than just people who read the same books or like the same comic books or like the same movies or like to do the same things. It's a community. It's where people find belonging, safety, and identity. And if someone's beliefs actively threaten other people in that space, they don't get to feel comfortable there. Saying everyone is welcome sounds good in theory, honestly, but in practice, it often means that marginalized people have to shrink and stay silent or self censor to avoid backlash. And Emily is saying, not in my house. For myself, I grew up mostly in Texas. And I remember many times, many different political situations or uprisings or protests, I felt, especially in the classroom, like I had to keep my feelings to myself, that I had to self censor. And it was so hard to sit in classrooms and hear people talk about things that they would never experience or talk about, people that they've never even spoken to or knowingly spoken to and talk about it as though they are the experts. And it was hard to sit there and listen to it. And of course, you're thinking, like, why didn't you speak up or say anything? And I think that it doesn't feel like a safe space to say anything. It feels like you're alone in your opinion, that you're sitting there in that classroom just alone and feeling like your opinion doesn't matter. You start to feel small. That's not the community that is open and one that is a true community. If people within your community feel like they can't be authentically themselves because of someone else's chosen political view, that's not a safe space, and I definitely agree with her. When she says not in my house, when she talks about, Trump supporters within her fandom, when she says like not in my house, that's not divisive. It's leadership. Not talking about politics doesn't keep things peaceful. It protects the people with power. And it makes everyone else feel like they have to hide who they are. And it almost makes them a bystander or feel like a bystander. And that's why I respect what Emily Rath said so much. She's not trying to be neutral. She's protecting her readers, her fans, and the very community that she created herself. She said the quiet part out loud. And I think more of us need to be doing that. And what you see with certain authors, especially over the past couple of months, we've seen a lot of authors having to really speak up and put themselves out there. I follow so many of them on multiple different social media platforms, and a lot of them have been so beautifully speaking out about so many important things. You think about H.T. Carlton, if you go on her threads, she just speaks so much about her political views, which I agree with all of them, her political views, her feelings about certain things. And of course, it could affect her bottom line. It just like it could affect Emily Rath's bottom line. It could affect people review bombing their books, but they don't care. And that is something that I really respect. Kennedy Ryan has also, spoken out about things like Palestine. A lot of authors have been doing that, from Hannah Grace to Ellie Hazelwood, right? I think people who their livelihood is based off of people buying and reviewing and listening or whatever to their books, and they don't care. They're willing to speak out because it's important to them, because it means something to them. And that is something I can respect more in an author than one who chooses to not say anything at all. Now, of course, when anyone has a strong opinion when it comes to politics or anything on BookTok, there was backlash.
How many of your followers fall under that same umbrella of LGBTQ but are also Trump supporters? How many of those supporters of you have been supporting you for years, maybe have been in your fandom, maybe have had conversations with you and you never knew that they were a Trump supporter or a MAGA snowflake, and you just completely like threw them out the window? That is what is not okay. They enjoy your work and you just disrespected them. And that is what I did not like. There were some people on my video commenting saying, what are you doing reading her books if you voted for someone who would essentially take the rights of those characters away? And to that I say, I can read whatever I want. I have that freedom. I have that right that I can read and enjoy any kind of book that I want to. Does not matter the political view or the political stance, even of that book. I can still read it. In the caption of her video, it said, my fandom starts and ends with respect for human dignity and human respect and equality. But she isn't doing any of those things towards Trump supporters.
But then she wants to turn around in the same breath, talk about how she's queer and talk about POC and LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff. But it's like a lot of like really opinionated liberals like this author just are choosing to overlook the high amount of trans, POC, LGBTQ, queer, whatever kind of people who also voted for Trump.
If you say you love and accept people, but then you ostracize, bully, and shame someone over their moral principles, their deeply held personal beliefs and values that have shaped them into the person they are, you don't actually love and accept people. You love and accept people who think like you do. And there's nothing inclusive or empathetic about that. If you didn't vote for my presidential choice, then you should probably know I don't care, because here in America, we are free to vote for whoever the hell we want to vote for. And if our vote doesn't go according to plan, we can vote again. So I don't know what's up with some of y'all who inhale the mainstream media news and you live in this perpetual state of fear and you spread that fear to everyone else, especially if you are a fellow author and you are telling your readers they are not welcome or safe in your space according to how they voted. Because one of the best things an author can do is educate, inspire, and get someone to see and appreciate a different point of view.
But here's the truth. Books have always been political, especially romance and especially fantasy. The difference is that when politics reinforces the status quo, we don't see them as political. People who are used to being centered get really upset when they're told a space isn't for them. But that discomfort, that's accountability. That's the bare minimum. And the idea that someone like Emily, who writes stories full of joy, liberation, queerness, and love, should have to tolerate followers who support policies that criminalize that exact thing, that's absurd. And I think also, going back to some Trump supporters, not all, I think that they sort of act like their political leanings and people choosing not to associate themselves with them because of their political leanings means that they are now like a part of a marginalized group, or they act like they're part of a marginalized group. They always have this sort of like victim mentality about it, when it's like you're being maybe told that you can't join a community, or that people maybe don't want you in their space, or maybe your children no longer talk to you. But the very politics and the things that you vote for is the equivalent of taking away people's lives, their livelihood, sending people back to countries that they don't even, that are either unsafe or ones that they don't even remember. Your policies and the things that you voted for are bringing actual harm than just being told that you can't be a part of someone's reading group. It's bigger than that. I myself am a part of a book club here in North Carolina. And yeah, I don't know the politics of everyone who's in the book club, but I feel safe amongst those women because the very books that we're reading and the very stuff that we are engaging with, I can tell that they think deeply about everything that we read. And we read romance, which a lot of people think that certain subject isn't very, thought-provoking, but there's a lot of politics within every single book that you read, whether it's about sex positivity or about actual political things that are happening out there in the world. They are all making a statement about something, whether it's the way that it's written or whether it is the type of characters they choose to highlight or type of situations they choose to highlight, the main characters themselves. All of them speak to some sort of political, or at least a way that an author is feeling about a certain subject, which can be political. To me, it's always so odd that Trump supporters read these books like The Poppy War or Yellowface, or I'm looking around my room trying to find books. The Housemaid series by Frida McFadden, books by Abby Jimenez or Emily Henry don't themselves take in maybe some of the, like, these books are just more than just tropes. It's how the author may feel about certain things. There are so many political sayings and leanings in books that maybe they don't even realize. So yeah, I stand with Emily. She's not banning readers. She's not banning her books from Trump supporters. She isn't being hateful. She's not dividing people. She's setting boundaries, and she's setting boundaries that protect the community she's built and herself. I see a lot of authors who set boundaries like not being able to tag them in reviews or not being able to tag them at all. That is not them being mean, or that is not them not appreciating people who love their work. It's them setting a boundary that I think is important for them to set. If your politics support the oppression of others, you should be very uncomfortable in inclusive spaces. That's the point. And all of what she's talking about and what completely went over the heads of some of those people. More authors, more influencers, more of us in general need to be willing to make people uncomfortable when their values cause harm. Fandom should be a space where people feel free, not a space where oppression is politely tolerated. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think authors should draw these kinds of lines in their fandoms? Have you seen other creators do that? I know this can be a very touchy subject. Politics is a very touchy subject. It's so complex and it's very individual, but at the same time, not very individual, because your politics, yes, can be a product of your upbringing, a product of your education, a product of, the very people you have around you, your friends, your family, your lack of friends, your lack of family. It could be all of those things. And I think that it's important that when you are creating a community, whether it's from a reader or from a author or from anyone who's choosing to want to have a community of people who talk amongst each other and share joy, life, their opinion, I think it's important to set and make it very clear on where you stand, your personal stance. I think it's important to know that. As always, thank you for watching. If this kind of commentary is your thing, make sure you like and subscribe if you want to, whatever you're feeling for today. And I'll see you in the next one. And yeah, also, this has been a bookish hot take delivered with peace, boundaries, and a little bit of personal anecdotes and righteous fire. And I hope that's okay. Also, if you are someone who likes to, I know for myself, as someone who drives a lot for work, if you want to hear this video and hear it on a podcast form, I also have a podcast. It is called Stories, Chapters, Tangents, because I'm always going on a little bit of a tangent, and a lot of it will be personal stories mixed with things that I'm feeling about in the bookish community. So it's only on Spotify at the moment because I just started it. So it'll be basically this video but put into podcast form. So if you ever want to listen to it as well. So you can find me on Spotify. Again, the podcast is called Stories, Chapters, Tangents. So hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Been brought to my attention that there is a whole wide world of people that are completely unfamiliar with the concept of the right to comfort. So the right to comfort is a concept that is central to understanding the existing power structures and the maintaining of power structures. But you can think of the right to comfort being used in any concept of oppressor over oppressed, an oppressor's innate belief in the right to comfort. And this is something that is trained into an oppressive group. What we mean by that is a psychological comfort, an emotional comfort that protects you from any kind of feeling of discomfort of maybe this power dynamic that I'm so comfortable living within is uncomfortable for other people.